A headline from the front page of the New York Times for every day of January 1939. Anglo-Reich talks on navies halted without an accord. Peru tried to color news and spied on U.S. at Lima. U.S. agents gather in Lima to combat fascist inroads. WPA funds were used for politics in 3 states, Senate committee finds. Congress opens in independent mood. Roosevelt offers a defense program against rising menace of dictators. Threat of economic sanctions seen. Roosevelt offers $9 billion budget with new record totals for defense. Also asks $879 million for relief now. Senators move to control relief spending. Cut of $200 million is sought. Roosevelt asked Democrats to unite behind New Deal, urges others to join GOP. Hungarians renew fight with Czechs in frontier areas. Move to cut relief fund makes gain in Congress. LaGuardia asks for more. President assigns Hopkins to reconcile labor groups. Study Wagner Act changes. Open showdown on relief now planned in the House. $875 million bill introduced. Vermont votes to support Governor Eichen in battle on federal land seizure. House in rebellion passes relief bill at $725 million. Restricts use of the funds. Revision of relief system planned by Senate group would shut out politics. Japan now facing U.S.-British front on new order idea. Roosevelt asks extension of the Social Security Act to more aged and children. Mexico dispatches envoy to Germany on secret mission. 3,000 new Army planes authorized in House bill. First defense plan step. Protecting coasts from air invasion is key to defense. Hitler removes Schnacht as Reichsbank's president. Suspends refugee talks. 10 of 13 saved on Bermuda plane forced into sea on hop from here. Picked up by tanker after 10 hours. Rescue ship due here today with 10 saved from plane. Search ends for 3 missing. Barcelona placed under Army rule as rebels close in. Rebels drive to Barcelona, seize airport and shell city. Refugees flee northward. Quake ruins 20 Chile towns. Concepcion City wiped out, loss of life in thousands. Rebels in Barcelona without a fight, hailed in streets, distribute food. French warn Italy on her demands. Roosevelt lets France buy planes. Senate inquiry on policies is likely. Nazis hint at new demands by Hitler. Chamberlain says force will unite democracies. Senators hear General Craig. Weinberg suicide. Accuser of Heinz used guard's gun. Hitler demands colonies. Riches for Japan and Italy. Tells U.S. not to meddle. A headline for every day of February 1939. Roosevelt to help democracies arm. Puts our defense frontier in France. Tells senators of dangers abroad. Secrecy in defense policy causes stir in the Senate. Germans attack Roosevelt. 12 dictators to rule Britain in war, each in a self-contained region. Roosevelt calls France frontier story a lie. Denies change in policy, attacks the press, secret parley to be aired in Senate debate. Peace move by loyalists is reported at border, London as the mediator. France opens her border to fleeing loyalist army. Azana is on way to Paris. Loyalists modify terms in peace talks at border. Franco bars concessions. Loyalists to continue war, despite loss of Catalonia. French warn on intrigues. Madrid makes peace move. France and Britain prepare to recognize Franco regime. Pope Pius is dead at the age of 81. Cardinals at bedside in the Vatican as end comes in sudden sinking spell. Body of Pope lies in state. World leaders pay homage. Cardinals prepare to sail. Germany to permit Jews to re-enter trade fields until they can immigrate. Wallace ridicules Reich Arianism in talk on Lincoln. Hoover warns New Deal invites inflation danger. Party rallies for 1940. Democrats ask Roosevelt to solidify party for 1940 by working with Congress. Rutich dismissal, as asked by the Amen grand jury, calls magistrate unfit. German envoy urges cardinals to elect pope favoring fascists. Roosevelt tells business no new taxes are planned, says confidence is in order. Madrid regime asks peace on sole basis of clemency, defense rushed by France. Minister is killed in Peru as his coup is foiled by troops. 22,000 Nazis hold rally in garden. Police check foes. Vincent says our interests link U.S. to Britain and France. Commons votes arms plan. Hitler conveys to Chamberlain pained surprise at British arming. Halifax warns Axis powers the democracies will resist. Hopkins declares recovery now sought by government with all vigor and power. Hines found guilty on all 14 counts in Schultz policy racket conspiracy. Jury out 7 hours. Bail is continued. Mayor acts to pull cap show off bench for link to Hines. Sees usefulness impaired. Supreme Court outlaws sit-down strikes. Upsets Labor Board rulings in 3 cases. Hopkins considers Wagner Act amendments. A headline for every day of March 1939. Mexicans seize 8 in Nazi spy plot. Hunt secret radio. Franco has asked Italy to recall army in Spain. Bonnet reveals in Paris. Pacelli elected Pope on 63rd birthday. Named on 4th ballot. Reigns as Pius XII. Expected to continue strong policies. Pius XII appeals for peace and first public act as Pope. Sets coronation March 12th. Roosevelt scores return of religious persecutions. Hughes extols U.S. system. General Casado ousts Negrin. Heads new Madrid Council. Cartagena revolt quelled. Madrid's council, headed by Mejia, combats the Reds. AFL rejects plan by Lewis for new labor federation. Leaders meet Roosevelt. Britain to put 300,000 men in France in event of war. U.S. to study Neutrality Act. Agreements with Brazil lift trade restrictions and renew debt service. Germany prepares to act on Slovak appeal for aid as Prague ousts premier. Mejia fights Reds and nationalists. Revolt persists. Pius XII crowned on balcony before vast Roman throng. 4-hour service impressive. Hitler reported ordering Czechs to set up 3 independent states. Sends troops toward the border. Troops of 4 nations contend for Ruthenia as Hitler dissolves Czechoslovak Republic and makes Bohemia Moravia a protectorate. Hitler follows his troops into Prague. Czechs jeer the Nazis. New regime set up. Hungarians resisted in Carpatho, Ukraine. Slovakia now Hitler protectorate. London and Paris may recall envoys. Hungary annexes Carpatho, Ukraine. Hitler demands trade control of Romania. Chamberlain bitter drops appeasement. Wells condemns wanton lawlessness. U.S. raises duties 25% on German imports. Britain and France protest Czech seizure. Russian backing sought in bloc to aid Romania. Romania accepts Hitler trade pact. Britain is sounding world power. Soviet note denounces Czech seizure. Britain seeks anti-Hitler compact. Russia proposes 9-power parley. U.S. won't recognize Czech seizure. Lithuania yields Memel to Hitler. Britain presses for 4-power action. Fascist council backs Reich policy. Hitler sails for triumph in Memel as Lithuania signs surrender treaty. Poles block London 4-power pact. Hungarians invade Slovakia. Hint his program is ended as cut from Hitler's speech. Slovakia calls on Hitler for help against Hungary. Poles bar 4-power accord. Hitler assures Mussolini of Reich's strong support. Duce defines policy today. Mussolini invites France to discuss colonial issues. Paris disposed to meet him. French bar talk with Italy pending specific demands. Germany pressing Poland. Madrid yields, ending war. Victors enter unresisted. Republican leaders flee. Daladier calls on Italy to clarify her demands, urges anti-aggressor bloc. Britain and France decide to defend Poland with armed power if Germany attacks her. Act on massing of Reich troops on border. A headline for every day of April 1939. Chamberlain pledge heartens Poles to warn Reich. Romania gets offer. Berlin shocked. Hitler replies today. Hitler dares Britain to pick fight. Chamberlain asks Duce to mediate. London gives new assurance to Poles. Armed pledge to Romania expected today by London. Beck arriving for parleys. Britain offers to assist any land menaced by Reich. Would end state of alarm. Poles agree to a British alliance. Albania threatened. Riots in Danzig. London is tense in midst of rumors. Rome hears move on Albania is near. Italian and German army chiefs meet. Axis plans warning to democracies. Italian forces landing in Albania. Rome reports its nationals imperiled. Britain offers guarantee to Hungary. Albanians resist the invading Italians. 4 ports seized. King Zog offers terms. British protest. Berlin backing Mussolini. Italians take Tirana. King Zog flees. White House sees new sharp issue. British studying pledge to Greece. Britain cautions Italians not to go beyond Albania. Pope hits pact violations. British Mediterranean fleet sails on decision to guard Greece and Turkey. Balkan Entente to defend frontiers. Britain extends defense alliances. Poles call troops. Sofia bans Nazis. Roosevelt sees America involved. Turkey is expected to join the Anglo-French alliance. Greek is holding aloof. Britain and France extend guarantee to Romania and Greece. Turkey next. We'll go straight ahead, says Duce. Roosevelt calls for peace in Europe, says we will defend all Americas. Britain presses for Russian accord. Roosevelt asks dictators for 10-year peace. Orders the U.S. fleet to return to Pacific. Berlin sees rejection. Incredible, says Rome. Nazis fearful of effect of Roosevelt plea in Reich. Skillful reply is expected. Reichstag will hear Hitler answer Roosevelt April 28th. British confident of Turkey. British would help Dutch, Swiss, and Danes if attacked. Reich fleet sails for Spain. Roosevelt says liberal are sole hope for party. Tells others to get out. Mussolini derides Roosevelt appeal. Hitler parades Reich mighty at fete. Soviet proposal to Britain reported. Secret Turco-British pact indicated in fleet moves. Russia seeks triple accord. Romania, in reply to Reich, admits lack of security. Other nations deny fear. Britain unexpectedly sends envoy back to Berlin Post. Conscription move gaining. Britain cabinet agrees unanimously on conscription and may tax wealth. Truce offer by Hitler seen possible. Britain gets huge defense budget. Conscription will call up millions. Hitler snubs London's ambassador. Nazis make three demands on Lithuania to increase turnover of trade 25%. British to conscript 200,000 yearly. Roosevelt asked dictators to confer with him at sea. Commons backs the draft. Hitler says no to Roosevelt, insists on Danzig, scraps Polish and British naval and Munich pacts. Warsaw defiant, Italy may end London Treaty. 1 million to see fair opening, President to speak at 2 p.m. Fleet here, visitors pour in. A headline from every day of May 1939. President opens fair as a symbol of peace. Vast spectacle of color and world progress thrills enthusiastic crowds on the first day. Hitler assails U.S. boycott, appeals for internal unity, polls weighing Danzig claim. Senators fight to hold Congress during crisis lest the U.S. be involved. Litvinov quits Soviet post. Molotov foreign minister, Britain for pledge to Reich. Russia switches her policy, drops collective security, foreign capitals puzzled. Beck rejects all of Hitler's demands, but would negotiate on an equality. British opposes Soviet alliance plan. Peace move by Pius XII reported as his nuncios consult high officials. Reich in Italy announce plan for a military pact. Danzig Nazis weigh putsch. Pope Pius asks 5 nations to confer in Vatican City. Reich, Britain woo Russia. Powers cool to Pope's plea. Danzig showdown expected. Britain to be an armed camp. Russia is assured she need not fight until Britain does. Chamberlain warns Nazi force in Danzig means war. Soviet still wants pact. British and Turks proclaim pledges to aid each other. Program for U.S. in war provides for 500,000 men in the aircraft industry. Mussolini declares war unnecessary. Present problems do not justify it. Roosevelt studies economic parley. Senate will act on taxes, Harrison tells Roosevelt. White House parley lively. Roosevelt urges inquiry on why money stays idle. Says recovery is retarded. King and Queen welcomed in colorful Quebec rights. Empire unity is stressed. 1 dead, 180 hurt in Palestine riots over British plan. Franco reviews 150,000 troops. Rain mars 5-hour Madrid parade. $150 million housing voted as legislature adjourns. Budget reduced $25 million. Pole kills German in Danzig disorder. Both sides protest. Axis powers sign 10-year alliance to remake Europe. 59 await rescue on sunken submarine 240 feet down near Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Contact restored after 10-hour break. 33 rescued from Squalus by diving bell. 26 others feared dead in flooded chambers. Survival tells of cool, cheerful discipline. No hope for 26 in Squalus. Opening of hatch reveals water fills their section. Divers clear way to raise Squalus. Pontoons tested. Hull for repeal of arms embargo drafts U.S. policy. Reich Church head defied by pastors. 75,000 march today to honor war dead. GAR rank thinned. Nazis seize palace of Reich's primate. A headline for every day of June 1939. Russians balk on pact. Ask Anglo-French pledge for all Baltic neighbors. Manton on stand denies all charges, admits gain of $1,250,000 in a year. Loss of 86 in submarine feared as tide engulfs it. For escape, some die in effort. Judge Manton is convicted by jury of selling justice. Judge Martin is acquitted. Hitler defiant of Britain on encirclement policy, likens her aims to 1914. Hague ban on CIO voided by the Supreme Court 5-2 on free assemblage right. Hitler hails deeds of his men in Spain as lesson to foes. King enters United States. Hull greets him at Niagara, due in Washington at 11 a.m. King and Queen guests at the White House after an impressive welcome in Washington. George hopes we will ever walk in friendship. Get ready to greet King and Queen today. They pay homage at Tomb of Washington. Visit Congress, leave the Capitol at night. 3.5 million cheering New Yorkers greet King and Queen. They are officially welcomed at Battery and Fair. Visit Columbia, drive to Hyde Park for day's rest. King departs for Canada, attends Roosevelt Church, and eats hot dogs at picnic. Drought hits nearby areas hard. Spring rain the least since 1903. House gets neutrality bill favored by administration. Arms embargo is dropped. British consider reprisals for blockade at Tientsin. All concessions at stake. Tokyo to force showdown on concessions in China. Backs army over Tientsin. Britain plans active steps if tension in Orient grows. Warships to run blockade. British hold of Japanese in clash at Shanghai Post. Tientsin sees long siege. British heartened on the Tientsin issue. See Tokyo pausing. Japanese put charged wire around British at Tientsin. Hull defines our concern. Hull protests to Japan on Kalangsu and bombing. Action and aid to Britain. Japan orders U.S. warship and others out of Swatow. Yarnell reported refusing. U.S. ships ignore Japanese demand. Hull backs stand. U.S. gets British rubber in trade for our cotton. Seeks deal with Belgium. Chamberlain warns Reich of British military might. Bars Japanese dictation. Nazi acts viewed as prelude to war. Britain advances Navy maneuvers to danger period. Roosevelt denounces ban on money devaluing power. Says it aids Wall Street. Nazis pouring into Danzig from Reich to join army. Young Poles also active. Britain is ready for war. Halifax warns Germany. Poles would resist coup. A headline for every day of July 1939. Hitler plans Danzig visit as step toward regaining the city in peaceful coup. British Labour bids Germans resist Nazi warlike aims. France cautions the Reich. Chamberlain again warns Reich against aggression, but is silent on Danzig. Reich denies aim to force Danzig issue with Poland. Chamberlain cites influx. Armed forces put at 10,000 in Danzig. Free city is calm. Roosevelt dollar control restored by Senate 43-39. He maps strategy for 1940. Frauds in city sales tax bared with 5 arrests. Chief investigator held. Senate group acts to block repeal of arms embargo. 90% WPA shutdown here threatened by AFL unions. Labor unites for new law. Nazi leader hurls defiance in Danzig. Bills to restore WPA pay are offered in Congress. Thousands back at work. Senate committee votes for delay on neutrality. Roosevelt will fight on. Oustings by Italy and anti-spy move. Anxiety mounting. Trieste leased by Reich for 10 years. Swiss here. Troops now using port. Roosevelt asked Congress to change Neutrality Act. Opponents await reaction. WPA to drop 75,000 here. Hire 42,000 on home relief. Move to revise law ended. Japan threatens raid into Siberia. Tyrolese fight evictions. 26 are reported killed in clashes with fascisti. No neutrality revision this session. Roosevelt told by leaders of Senate in a night conference his plea fails. Names of WPA strikers asked in Congress inquiry. Links to Reds are sought. Inquiry into Labor Board voted by House 254 to 134. Hatch bill is then passed. Revised Hatch bill passes Senate, goes to Roosevelt, he hits neutrality stand. War games by Axis in Tyrol foreseen. Reich now admits materials famine. British concedes to Japan rights to security in China, denies belligerent status. Japan blocks British trade by closing river to Canton. Hull won't yield on China. U.S. denounces Japanese trade treaty, action effective 6 months from now, opens way to embargo on war goods. Treaty action stuns Japan, reprisals hinted in Tokyo, U.S. secrecy irks London. Senate economy bloc cuts lending bill by $850 million, rejects prevailing wage. House group joins in slash of $850 million on spending, dismissals by WPA halted. Anti-British drive extended in China, many must flee. A headline for every day of August 1939. Three-power military talks to begin now in Moscow, spurred to political accord. Lending bill is killed in House 193 to 166. Roosevelt sees recovery retarded. Adjournment by Saturday is sought. $800 million housing bill faces defeat as House leaders force vote today. President warns on, signs Hatch Act. Housing bill killed 191 to 170 by House Economy Group. Quick adjournment sought. Congress to adjourn today. Deficiency bill increased by the Senate to $185 million. Congress quits Shinnet Day at 6:35 p.m. $119 million more voted for crop loans. Social Security tax cut $905 million. Japanese destroy 2 British ships in raid on Yangtze. Italy's war games end abruptly with Mussolini strangely absent. Angry Reich press threatens Poland with mailed fist. Yugoslavia bars Axis plan to use her material in war. Danzig plebiscite tonight. Fate of Hungary an issue as Chano goes to Germany. Protection assured Danzig. Chano and Ribbentrop meet, confer with Hitler today. Yugoslavia calls troops. Hitler and Chano to continue conference a third day, calls problems complex. 22 killed, 60 hurt in crash of speed train in Nevada. Sabotage, coroner finds. Axis reported asking Pope to call 4-power parley. Other negotiators active. Axis warns Danzig issue must be faced promptly. British bar new Munich. Germany reveals demands on Poland, now wants both Corridor and Danzig. Press asks area lost at Versailles. Reich sees Polish rebuff and ignoring of its terms. Action a matter of days. Reich takes over Slovakia, puts military in control. Hungary faces Nazi crisis. Reich calls Slovak troops to army on Polish border. British ministers to meet. Poles rush troops to face Germans. Pope sends peace envoy to Warsaw. Berlin and Moscow sign trade pact. Germany and Russia agree on non-aggression. Ribbentrop going to Moscow to draft pact. Berlin sees quick showdown with Poland. British and France stand by pledge to Poles. Rush plans for war. Warsaw remains firm. Elated Germans see victory in Russian pact. Germany and Russia sign 10-year non-aggression pact. Bind each other not to aid opponents in war acts. Hitler rebuffs London. Britain and France mobilize. Hitler acts to take Danzig. Orders army to be ready. Chamberlain gets war power. London and Paris dark. Roosevelt appeals to Germany and Poland and Italy. Hitler reported willing to ease demands on Poland. London gets terms today. Britain and France firm. Roosevelt addresses new peace appeal to Germany. Hitler demands Britain abandon Polish alliance. London and Paris reported rejecting Nazi terms. Mobilization still rushed. Nuremberg canceled. Hitler tells Paris he must get Danzig and Corridor. Berlin thinks door is left open to peaceful solution. British answer today to insist on rights of Poland. Hitler gets British note and will make written reply. Berlin finds London's stand not wholly negative. Tension is eased, but Europe remains poised for war. New Hitler note keeps negotiation open. Berlin hopeful for peace, slows war moves. Commons cheers pledge to resist force. British reply to Hitler narrows the issue to free negotiations with Poland or war. Reich organizes National Defense Council. A headline from every day of September 1939. German army attacks Poland, cities bombed, port blockaded. Danzig is accepted into Reich. Britain and France send ultimatums. Warsaw calls allies. Italy neutral. Germans attack Poles on 4 fronts. Britain and France in war at 6 a.m. Hitler won't halt attack on Poles. Chamberlain calls Empire to fight. British liner Athenia torpedoed and sunk. 1,400 passengers aboard. 292 Americans, all except a few, are reported saved. French and British attack Germans on wide fronts. 2 Reich battleships hit an air raid on Wilhelmshaven. Stories of Athenia rescues told. U.S. curbs travel. Germans shell Warsaw, residents in flight. U.S. neutrality proclaimed, arms embargoed. Markets here rise. Athenia was shelled. Poles hold Germans in battle for Warsaw. French invade Reich. British land in France. Roosevelt plans early Congress session. Germans rush troops west to meet French. Polish army intact still defends Warsaw. Submarines sink 4 British freighters. Germans in part of Warsaw, Poles are resisting. French drive on, report Saarbrücken surrounded. U.S. proclaims emergency to protect neutrality. Germans try to sweep around Warsaw defenders. French advance again. Goering makes bid to Paris. British cabinet preparing for a 3-year war. Poles repel attacks on Warsaw. Nazis report trapping 2 armies. French shift their drive in west. Poles halt enemy on wide front. French continue to gain in west. Reich to intensify shipping war. Nazis say Warsaw is encircled. Poles assert foe is hurled back. French drive on Saarbrücken. Germans bombing open towns. Britain threatens to retaliate. Nazi offensive gains in Poland. Russia threatens Poland as her defense crumbles. French capture prisoners. Russia and Japan agree on armistice in the Orient. Large-scale battle developing on Western Front. Drive in the east is slowed. British sink submarines. Soviet troops marched into Poland at 11 p.m. Nazis demand Warsaw give up or be shelled. Fierce battle is raging on Western Front. Russians drive 40 miles into Poland, defense weak. Polish president in Romania, Warsaw holding out. Britain and France, concerned, consult on action. Soviet and Reich forces meet, map Polish partition. 500 lost on British airplane carrier sunk by U-boat. French advance within outworks of the West Wall. Hitler tells Allies it is his peace or a Finnish fight. Britain and France for war till Hitlerism is ended. Russian Navy reported blockading Estonian coast. Nazis concentrate forces in west. Brauchitsch arrives from Poland. Britain reports Czechs in revolt. Roosevelt asks Congress to repeal arms embargo. Hard fight indicated as 24 senators map resistance. Romanian premier assassinated. Nazi coup foiled. Dutch and Belgians open dikes, seeing threat in German moves. Poland partitioned by invaders. French repel 3 counterattacks, advance a mile in Sierk sector. Mussolini would halt war now. Nazi guns and planes razing Warsaw. Half of city is in flames. 1,000 slain. British expect new Reich peace drive. French shell Reich forts on Rhine as Nazi troops mass near Basel. Soviet army at Estonian frontier. Russo-German pact to dominate Balkans seen in Moscow parley. France puts ban on communism. Estonia reported ready to yield as Russo-German parleys begin. Warsaw, a shambles, surrenders. Reich and Soviet join for peace or war. No buffer state. New pact warns allies. Estonia gives Moscow sea and air bases. Britain and France spurn Nazi-Soviet peace. Formal offer by Mussolini is now expected. Reich hints Red Plains will attack in west. A headline for every day of October 1939. Reich threatens to sink British ships on sight. Holds defensive guns make them warships. Chano is invited to Berlin. Reichstag called. Churchill bars a Hitler peace. British conscripts 250,000 more. Latvia to get Russian demands. Senate opens battle over embargo with 60 believed favoring repeal. Germany warns American shipping. Chamberlain bars Hitler pledges, says threats will not sway allies. Nazis see and talk chants for truce. Turkey resisting Russian pressure for dominant role in the Balkans. Hitler Reichstag speech tomorrow. U.S. refugees ship will be sunk, Reich says, implying Allied plot. Hitler's peace terms forecast. Hitler demands his peace or a war of destruction. Allies forecast rejection, but are studying terms. Russia aloof reported planning to fortify border. Roosevelt cool to mediator role, might act later if sure of success. Britain expected to outline terms. Soviet agrees to rush good to Reich as German delegates meet Molotov. Paris sees Hitler's peace misfiring. Finland and Russia massing troops. Sweden sees threat, mans defenses. British Navy fights off air bombers. Daladier bars peace on Nazi terms. Finland mobilizes her Baltic fleet, sends civilians from border towns. U.S. reported joining three powers in a plea to Russia on Finland. Anglo-Soviet trade pact signed. War in earnest unless U.S. acts, Berlin says after Chamberlain rejects Hitler terms. U.S. appeals to Russia. Finns plan for worst. U.S. ignores Nazi mediation plea. Berlin asks Soviet-Italian talks. British sink 3 more U-boats. U-boat sinks British battleship, 396 of 1,200 on Royal Oak rescued. Soviet-Finnish accord held near. Submarines sink 3 Allied ships, shelled without warning, 15 lives lost. Turkey rebuffs Moscow Balkan moves. Nazis bomb Navy base in Scotland, hit cruiser, kill 15, lose 4 planes. Germans gain in Moselle thrust. Nazis attack with 100,000 on West Front. Planes raid British fleet and East Coast. Turks reject Soviet terms and end parleys. Roosevelt bars war submarines from using U.S. ports and waters. Scandinavia weighs aid to Finns. Turkey signs 15-year treaty with allies. Berlin, Moscow, and Rome are perturbed. Scandinavians urge Finns to compromise. Berlin says war is on to the finish. Hitler calls 3 envoys to confer. Allies plan for expected Nazi drive. Nazi planes attack convoy, 4 downed. Hitler orders a new drive on ships, calls party men. Russia warns Turks. French quit Warrant Forest, hold only a few outposts. British rout air raiders. Nazis seize U.S. ship City of Flint, sailing her to Murmansk, Russia. Soviet interns German captors. U.S. to demand Soviet release ship. Finns halt Moscow negotiations. Ribbentrop assails Britain as foe. American crew safe on City of Flint. Russia frees Germans, holds the ship. Nazi press urges bombing of Britain. City of Flint freed, quits Murmansk. German crew reported in command. Passenger on her tells of capture. Pope condemns dictators, treaty violators, and racism. Urges restoring of Poland. Soviet insist Flint sailed. Berlin reports conflicting. Czechs riot, many are held. Flint's route held a military secret by Nazi officials. Nazi tortures detailed by Britain, concentration camp horrors told. A headline for every day of November 1939. Molotov lays war to allies, berates U.S. Talk angers Finns. U-boat attack reported off U.S. White House accuses Molotov of meddling in U.S. embargo fight. No trace found of attacked ship. House dooms arms embargo 243 to 181. $1 billion in war orders expected. Berlin sees U.S. taking side of allies. Norway interns German crew, frees Flint. Russo-Finnish crisis near, embargo repealed. GRU threatens economic pressure on Japan. Roosevelt establishes combat area, U.S. nationals and ships barred in it. Reich protests to Norway on Flint. Nor'easter pounds coast here, rain replenishes city reservoirs. Reds urge world revolt, include Reich as capitalists. French claim air victory. Democratic sweep in city election, Perry-Mutel amendment is adopted, California and Ohio pension plans lose. Hitler escapes bomb explosion by 15 minutes. 6 killed, 60 wounded in Munich beer cellar. $200,000 reward offered for the instigators. Fatal border clash stirs Dutch. Defense measures are rushed. Major Nazi offensive forecast. Lowlands tense, foreigners to leave. Hitler paper expects decisive blow. Finland and Russia are deadlocked. Pius XII criticizes lack of religion in schools of U.S. Britain and France state war aims. George says aggression must stop. Lebrun insists Nazis return spoils. Reich to reply no to peace proposal. Assures neutrals. 500 reported lost as oil fire sweeps town in Venezuela. Policeman kills Long Beach mayor and shoots bodyguard. General Motors is found guilty in monopoly case. 9 Czech students executed. U-boat seen aiding Russia set up blockade of Finns. Mine sinks Dutch liner in North Sea. 140 lives feared lost, 260 rescued. Nazis impose martial law in Prague. Mines sink 5 more ships, 4 owned by neutrals, British plan to sweep sea. 6 more ships sunk, British weigh ban on Reich exports. British to seize Reich exports. Cruiser reported hit by U-boat. 2 Britons held in Munich plot. Mine sinks British warship, 40 lost. French craft destroys 2 U-boats. Netherlands halts all ship sailings. Report Nazis drop mines from air. 9 ships sink, Allies down 13 planes. Romania names pro-French premier. Mines forced London port to close, holding ships outside till cleared. Italy joins protests on blockade. Nazis bomb British North Sea fleet. Report 4 ships hit. London denies it. Japan threatens blockade reprisal. Soviet charges attack by Finns who defy demand to quit border. Pilsudski and armed liner sunk. Finns offer parley on withdrawal. Soviet urges revolution in Helsinki. Rawalpindi sunk by the Deutschland. Russia scraps pact with Finland. 3 border clashes reported. British raid German naval base. Russians start their invasion of Finland. Planes drop bombs on airfield at Helsinki. War starts as U.S. move for peace is made. A headline for every day of December 1939. Finn's cabinet resigns as Soviet bombs cities. New government expected to seek a truce. Russia seizes port and islands. 200 are killed. Soviet sets up red regime on Finnish border. Finns rally and report sinking an enemy cruiser. Roosevelt condemns wanton Russian attack. Finns report Soviet drive halted. Red State meets Moscow terms. Roosevelt bars planes to Russia. Finns ask for peace negotiations, say mines killed 1,000 Russians. British airplanes raid Helgoland. Russia refuses peace and spurns League. Finns check invasion and fortified lands. British ship victims of German raider. Finns on offensive and raid enemy bases. Swedes call troops and mine seacoast. U.S. would join in denouncing Russia. Red Oregon calls on Romania for pact similar to those with Baltic states. Moscow reports break in Finns' line. Russians blockade Finland, balked at Mannerheim line. Italy warns on the Balkans. Kennedy presents to President plan to use idle ships. Finns hurl back Russians in attack on wide front. 4 more ships are sunk. U.S. gives Finland $10 million in credits. Helsinki appeals to world for help, disputes Soviet claims of advances. League calls on Russians to end war and negotiate. Finns hold back invaders. Russia rejects League demands, presses drive in central Finland. Bremen eludes foe and dashes home. British defeat Nazi raider in all-day fight. She runs to Montevideo with 36 dead, 60 hurt, U-boat sunk. Reich cruiser hit in North Sea. Uruguay lets the Spee stay for repairs as British mass warships off Montevideo. Finns report gains. League drops Russia. Spee must go by 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. Finns report Suomussalmi retaken. British planes raid German bases. Spee still in harbor at daybreak, although ready for dash to sea. Reinforced Allied fleet awaits her. Captain, on Hitler's order, sinks Spee off Montevideo after debarking crew. Finns reported 20,000 Russians trapped. Air fleets fight off Helgoland. German cruiser sunk in the Elbe. British submarine hits 2 others. Liner Columbus scuttled off U.S. Nazi freighter flees to Florida. Russians and Finns in air raids. Columbus crew held at Ellis Island. Captain of Graf Spee kills himself. Tanks and airplanes attack Finns. Russians retreat in Arctic from Finns, cold and snow. Raid Helsinki hospital zone. Finns press retreating foe. Rome hears of peace talk. Nazi fleet reported at sea. Taylor named peace ambassador by Roosevelt to work with Pope. Finns victors on Central Front. Pope offers 5 bases of just peace, urges right to life of all nations. Finns drive ahead on 3 fronts. Nation at peace unites in thanks on Christmas Day. Finns repeal foe in Karelia. Viborg again is bombarded. Rumors stir Russian public. Finns again cross border and imperil Russian railroad. Soviet calls more troops. Quake casualties 110,000, Turk investigators say. 3,000 Russians die as Finns beat off Karelian attacks. Finns drive Russians back over border for third time. Hitler asks for sacrifices.